Tina. It's Donna. Hi.
Tell them we need Larry.
They got. They got almost. Okay.
All set?
That's okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Councilwoman Joanne Ryan. Welcome to the Committee on Finance. Our regular meeting, Tuesday, February 8th. It is 5:34. Madam Clerk, could you kindly read the roll?
Chairwoman Ryan,
Present.
Vice Chairwoman Castillo is absent. Councilman Narducci,
Yeah.
Councilwoman Anthony, Councilwoman Anthony,
She's muted.
Thank you, Councilman.
Councilman Taylor,
Here.
do you want to go back to her and try to get?
Councilwoman Anthony, can you hear us? Let's just wait a second for Councilwoman Anthony.
It doesn't look like she can hear us, Madam Chair.
Thank you. She needs to come up.
Oh, he has to hang up when you're done. I don't see Kenny saying he sees no one.
Just stand at ease a moment. We're trying to get Councilwoman Anthony, a committee member.
I'm going to try to send her a text.
Councilwoman Anthony, can you hear us? No? You need to go out and come back in, please? Thank you. Okay. Okay. Kenny in?
Kenny, can you hear us?
Yes.
Oh, I see Councilwoman Anthony. Can you hear us? You're off mute.
Like that she's present and then she can fix it after.
Madam Clerk, do you have any suggestion for Councilwoman Anthony?
She has to dial in. That's the only way she.
Can you dial in to the meeting? The dial-in number? Please provide it for Councilwoman Anthony. At least we can see you, and if you dial in, you can have audio. I'm sorry, Councilwoman. Can you please wave at the clerk so she can recognize that you are attending the meeting? Councilwoman Anthony, just wave. Okay.
So,
All right, so,
So we have 4 present and 1 absent.
Okay.
We have a quorum.
and we're gonna have Councilwoman Anthony call now. All right, we also have with us City Solicitor Ken Chavarini. Ken, are you with us?
Yes,
And
I
can
am,
you
Madam
hear
Chair.
us? Thank you kindly.
Yes, I can.
Our clerk, we are privileged to have with us Sherry Petronio and Donna Pelagian are our clerks for this evening. Make sure everything runs smoothly. And has Councilwoman Anthony called in?
I just called her and she's going to see if she can help her out.
Okay. So Councilwoman, we're going to try to get you some assistance. One of the clerks is going to reach out to you, okay? I think at this juncture, we're going to entertain a motion to take items 2, 3, and 4 out of order. May I have that motion?
Motion made, Madam Chair.
Motion made by
Second.
Leader Narducci, seconded by Leader Taylor. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it, motion carries. So we're going to take 2, 3, and 4. We're going to start with 2. Before I do that, I'd like to recognize my council colleagues on the call this evening. We have Councilman Espinal, we have Councilman Vargas, we have Councilwoman LaFortune, we have Councilwoman Kerwin, Councilwoman Miller. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. How's our friend Councilwoman Anthony doing? You're smiling.
I can hear.
Tina just resent her the link. Tina just
Wonderful.
resent it.
Okay, so we're in good shape. Councilwoman Anthony is with us. Okay, item 2, please. Madam Clerk, kindly read it into the record.
Communication from His Honor the Mayor dated January 18, 2022, informing the honorable members of the City Council that pursuant to Sections 302B and 1103 of the Providence Home Charter of 1980, as amended in public law, Chapter 45-50, Sections 1 through 31, passed in 1987, he is to stay reappointing Kai X. Lamuccio of 1118 Narragansett Boulevard, Cranston, Rhode Island, 02905, as a member of the Human Relations Commission for a term to expire on January 31st, 2025, and respectfully submits the same for your approval.
Thank you very much. Is Kai Lamuccio with us this evening?
I'm here.
Wonderful. Wonderful. The clerk is going to swear you in. Madam Clerk?
Will you please raise your right hand? Do you swear under penalty and perjury that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. So you are being reappointed to the Human Relations Commission. Please, your term to expire in 2025. Please tell us about yourself, your experience, and why you would like to be reappointed to this important commission.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Ryan and council members, for your time. I've been on the Human Relations Commission for a few terms now, as they say in Rhode Island. I'm a member of the trans community. I'm a member of the disability community, and I'm the men's leader for a Providence Buddhist organization. So my passion in the past 2 years has really come from working with the anti-racism committee within the Providence Human Relations Commission. And I really want to make sure that work moves forward. We have a coalition together that I want to make sure stays together and is sustained into the future. I've also kind of taken on the role in the past couple of years of being a little bit of the mediator and helping with tension for my Buddhist background. And I'm hoping my patience can serve the community, the committee and the commission well in the next couple of years. I also feel I've just gotten the hang of being on a commission after all this time, and I'm eager to move forward, feeling I finally get the hang of things. So I could go on, but I don't want to.
No, that sounds great. Committee members, do you have Kai's, excuse me, information before you? You're all set. Any questions for no? Committee members, council members? No questions? Okay, with that, may I entertain a motion to recommend approval to the full council?
So moved.
May I have a motion? Motion made by Councilwoman Anthony, seconded by?
Second.
May I have a second by Councilman Taylor? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. You're all set. Your appointment will go before the full council at the next council meeting. We wish you well. We thank you very much for your service to the city of Providence, and I'm glad you got the hang of it. Boards can be tricky, but very rewarding, and our best wishes to you.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Okay. Item 3, please.
Communication from His Honor the Mayor dated January 26, 2022, informing the honorable members of the city that pursuant to sections 302B and 1103 of the Providence Home Charter of 1980, as amended in public law, chapter 45-50, 1 through 31, passed in 1987. He is to stay appointing Madeline Chiampi of 150 Enfield Avenue, Providence, Rhode Island, 02908, as a member of the Human Relations Commission for a term to expire on January 31st, 2025, and respectfully submits the same for your approval.
Thank you very much. Do we have Madeline with us?
Yes, I'm present.
Wonderful. Madam Clerk, please swear Madeline
Raise
in.
your right hand. Do you swear the penalty of perjury that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Madeline, thank you for your interest in this commission. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and why you'd like to serve on it.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for the opportunity to be here. My name's Madeline, and I've been a resident of Providence for about 10 years. And I initially came to the city for my undergraduate studies at Providence College, and then stayed for my graduate studies at Brown University. And then I recently had the good fortune of purchasing a home in the city with my husband about a year and a half ago. So since I moved to Providence, I've had the opportunity to be involved in the community in a variety of ways. I've worked with the Feinstein Institute for Public Service and the Providence After School Alliance, and have been serving in my current position with a nonprofit called Providence Promise for about 5 years. And I've had, these great opportunities for engagement, but it's been more so through, my post-secondary studies and professional work. So I've been looking for additional opportunities to engage as a community member of the city. And as for my interest in the PHRC, I'm a first-gen college student from a very small town, and I'm particularly interested in access to community resources, civic involvement, and education. And I feel like the PHRC would be a great fit for me because of the commission's focus on civil rights and education, community engagement, and racial equity. So I would be very grateful for the opportunity to serve on the commission.
Wonderful. Well, you certainly have a wonderful, great background. You live in the 5th Ward, so you get a lot going for you.
I do.
You have a great councilwoman, I hear. I also, I see you went to Providence College. Good to see a fellow alumni serving our city. And again, your resume looks great. Committee members, anybody have any questions, thoughts? Words of advice? Councilwoman Anthony.
I don't have any words of advice, but I have to thank you for your desire to serve on this very important committee. And I think you'll bring a great deal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Anthony. Councilwoman LaFortune, you have a question?
Thank you. I just wanted to add and thank Madeline for her service as well. I've known Madeline since grad school. We actually went to Brown together, and one of the first major projects that we worked on for the city of Providence was we did the research and put together the proposal for the ethnic studies curriculum for Providence Public Schools. And Madeline is truly passionate about education and serving our community, and also understands the challenges that many people in our community faces. So it's really exciting to see her continuing her service, and also is committed to the city of Providence. So I'm very excited for you, Madeline. Congratulations.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Councilwoman, for sharing that. And Madeline, you're an excellent candidate. Again, excited to see someone of your caliber, your interest and experience stepping up to serve our city.
Thanks so much.
This is an important board, and you've got all the tools. With that, may I have a motion, entertain a motion to recommend approval to the full council?
Motion made, Madam Chair.
Councilman Narducci makes that motion, seconded by?
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Anthony. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you very much. You go to the full council for approval. We wish you well, and thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Okay, item 4, please.
Communication from His Honor the Mayor dated January 26, 2022, informing the honorable members of the City Council that Sections 3B and 1103 of the Providence Home Rule Charter of 1980, as amended in Public Law, Chapter 45-50, Sections 1 through 31, passed in 1987, he is this day appointing Silas Warren Murray of 181 Oliva Drive, Providence, Rhode Island, 02908, as a member of the Human Relations Commission for term to expire on January 31st, 2025, and respectfully submits the same for your approval.
Wonderful. Silas Murray, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Welcome. Madam Clerk, please swear Mr. Silas in. Marianne,
Would
excuse
you
me.
please raise your right hand? Do you swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, yes, I do.
Great. Please share with us, tell us a little bit about yourself, your interest in this board,
Yes,
and why you'd like to serve on it.
yes. So again, my name is Silas Murray. I've been a Providence resident for 10 years now. I came to Rhode Island to go to school at Rhode Island College. I've been very invested in the community through an organization called Beat the Streets Providence that works directly with Providence Public School District, where we work very closely with Providence middle school students as well as high school. What really interests me about the Providence Human Relations Commission is the human relations piece, protecting of rights, the government reform, the community engagement is a big piece of work that I'm currently doing, being involved in the community, doing community work, and also getting our youth involved in the community as well. And, you know, our kids and people within our communities are also, you know, facing certain things that I think that these different committees are, you know, supporting, like the anti-racism community and the policy committee, which I feel very closely related to, where I'm seeing, you know, our youth develop through our organization where they're facing these struggles. And if we're able to assist our communities at this younger age, I think, you know, this can help out Providence as a whole.
Wonderful. Committee members, any questions for Silas Murray? Councilwoman Anthony?
Yes, I'd just like to say again, thank you very much. You have some great experience, and you're very articulate about, you know, why it is that you want to serve on this commission. And I can see you've already been doing a substantial amount of work on the ground. So I wanted to thank you so much for your service.
Thank you so much.
Any other committee members? Councilwoman Anthony? Council members, Councilwoman Anthony, oh, excuse me, LaFortune, you have your hand up? Is that from the prior matter?
It was from the prior, but I just want to say congratulations, Silas. This is amazing. And, you know, just thinking about the work that Beat the Streets has done throughout all of our our middle schools. And also Silas has just been very active in the community. So again, I'm very excited to see you as well being part of this mission. So congratulations to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilwoman LaFortune. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay, may I have a motion to recommend approval of
Motion
Silas
made.
Murray? Motion made by Councilman Narducci. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Anthony. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. You could now go to the full council. Silas, we wish you well, and thank you so very much for your interest in serving on a commission for the city of Providence. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be a part of this board and this commission now. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk, please read item 5 into the record.
Resolution supporting and approving the Providence Public School District's necessity of school construction of stage 2 approval.
Okay. Chief Mancini, are you going to lead us off in this discussion?
I am, Madam Chair, thank you. And Madam Chair, I don't know if we've had the opportunity to swear in all of our officials as yet, or will that be done at this time?
I think we're going to do that right now. So anyone who is joining Chief Mancini in the presentation on item 5, Madam Clerk, could you please lead them in the swearing in?
Everybody, please raise your right hand. Testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
I do. Lawrence J. Mancini, Chief Financial Officer of the City of Providence.
Demo Roberts, Director of Public Property.
Zach Scott, Deputy Superintendent for Providence Public Schools.
Mario Carreño, School Building Authority.
Joe DeSanti, Owner's Project Manager, Downs Construction.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Madam, yes. So, Madam Chair, thank you for this opportunity, and I appreciate your courtesy and consideration of moving this item up on the agenda, as I have another conflict at 7:30. Madam Chair, members of the.
I have an exhibit, sir. Chief, I want to get this into the record. May I entertain a motion, please, to enter a PowerPoint presentation? It appears to be on 14-page document. We'll call it Exhibit 7 to the upper documents. May I have that motion?
Motion made.
Motion made by Councilman Naducci, seconded by Councilman Taylor. Chief Taylor, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Please continue, Chief.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And once again, thank you for the courtesy this evening. We are before you this evening, Madam Chair, myself, School Superintendent Dr. Javier Montanez, Deputy Superintendent Zachary Scott, as you heard earlier, Public Property Director Demo Roberts, from the School Building Authority, Mr. Mario Carreno, and the OPM associated with Downs Construction for the schools, Mr. Joseph DeSanti. Madam Chair, members of the committee, members of the council, the item before you, as has been displayed in the resolution and in the exhibit that you introduced, is intended to have your consideration this evening and your approval, and it is a standard practice and procedure associated with the regulations under Rhode Island regulations associated with ride reimbursement. It is technically known as the Providence Public School District's necessity of school construction application to ride for stage 2 approval. So, Madam Chair, members of the committee, you may recall that some time ago we had the similar presentation regarding the stage 1 application. It drew its financial support from voter approval of a $160 million general obligation bond that was voted overwhelmingly in 2018. On that $160 million approval, Madam Chair, we were able to do $60 million in PAYGO, money that required the city to put up a match, and those funds came from the School Building Authority bond, which we did from the premium that we earned when we closed on the $100 million bond issue that we closed last spring. That bond issue was closed under historic borrowing terms. Not only did it earn $23 million in premium, but that premium allowed us to meet our match on the PAYGO, set aside funds in escrow, if you will, known as capitalized interest, to pay 2 years of debt service, and it also provided additional funds to the district's projects. When those funds have been expended and the projects are completed, it will match up quite nicely with reimbursement that runs from the current 82% to a high of 91%, based on 21st century learning and other incentives associated with RIDE and School Building Authority governance. Having said that, Madam Chair, we now bring ourselves to the stage 2 application. This application will be provided under the voter authority that was granted in November of 2020 on a $140 million general obligation question, and the voters approved that as well overwhelmingly. While we are not drawing any funds under the $140 million authority as yet, that matter will come before this body once again in late spring, as we might close that bond as early as the beginning of the new fiscal year. This is a necessary first step in the application process. We must meet a deadline that's set off as February 15th for all school jurisdictions in Rhode Island. And as we proceed this evening, Madam Chair, it's my attempt and my hope that we will get this out of committee and that we'll head towards single passage of a resolution, again, which is a standard instrument of government associated with the ride reimbursement. And ideally, it would be approved at your next full council meeting on February 17th. And because of the progress of our application and the appearance before this body this evening, it will qualify us as a timely filed application. The stage 2 application, Madam Chair, members of the committee, is a significantly comprehensive financial and construction document. It goes through multiple stages of cash flow associated with each project. It is an intense document that took months of compilation by members of the outside construction consulting firm and members of the school building committee, of which I am a member, along with Dr. Montanez, Mr. Roberts, Mr. Scott, and other officials, including Council President Igliozzi. This evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee, I have assembled a team of experts associated with school district financing and school district construction, and they are the folks who daily govern these processes. We've also invited Mr. Mario Carreno. He is the subject content knowledge expert in this field in his position as Director of the School Building Authority, and is available to explain and present information on the validity of this application as well as the benefit to the city and the school district. So, Madam Chair, with your permission, if you'd be so kind, I would like to have Deputy Superintendent Chief Zachary Scott, if you'll be so kind, to take the lead at this time and go through the presentation as was provided to the clerk earlier today, and he can walk you through that presentation, and we'll all be available for further questioning or comment.
Thank you. Please continue.
Thank you so much, Chief Mancini. Let me see if I can share my screen so that everyone can see. But while I'm doing that, Superintendent Montanez, are you able to, I know you wanted to share some remarks if the audio is working in your room.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, Superintendent.
Okay, thank you, thank you. First, I would like to say good evening, council members. Today, I'm deeply excited to share with you our vision for the second stage of the renovations of school across Providence. Like many of you, I am a product of the school system. I grew up attending crumbling school buildings in Providence. And when I returned as an educator, I found that those buildings had the exact same problems decades later. Significant maintenance has been delayed year after year, and the need began to vastly exceed the funds being allocated to some schools' constructions. This is a generational systemic failure, but it may have started long before us. It can and must end with us. As I like to say, instruction drives construction. And when we can make a difference for our students and families with these projects. This plan is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to rebuild Providence schools and transform our facilities to meet the ultimate potentials for our students. We're targeting not only buildings most in need of repair, but also students most in need of support by prioritizing the one-star and two-star schools. We are also using this to meet the needs of the city that has changed drastically over the past few decades. We are creating 3 new community-focused K-8 schools and adding over 1,000 new dual language seats. As a former principal of the Leventon Dual Language Elementary School, I know firsthand what this immediately impacts, how this immediately impacts and empowering our multilingual learners. These new facilities will not only strengthen the academic, but will build stronger communities by creating a school in every community that residents can be proud of. 2 brand new schools in the old St. Joseph and Windmill Street space, as well as a brand new building for the Spaziano Annex, will rejuvenate the education of neighborhoods across the city. And at every step of the way, our work will be informed by educators, parents, and representatives who vastly improve our school system. Once again, thank you for your partnership and advice as we work together to transform our schools. I believe we share the common goal of 21st century schools that inspire our students and succeed. I want to collaborate, and we will be able to transform our facilities. I would like now to turn it over to Zach Scott for our presentation.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you, Superintendent, and thank you, members of the Finance Committee. I'm very much appreciative of your offer for us to join you today. Excuse me. We are excited to share, as Chief Mancini and Superintendent Montanez shared, excited to share information about our Stage 2 application. So we'll cover a little bit more about overall progress on our capital plan, with the main focus tonight being that Stage 2 application that Chief Mancini described so well. So as many of you are familiar with, and as Dr. Montanez highlighted, there is a significant need, facilities need in the district. By some estimates, roughly $700 million worth of need district-wide. And given some of the deferred maintenance we've had over the past, looking at the past 7 or 10 years, at the rate work was being done, it would take roughly 300 years by some estimations of getting that all completed. So a lot of work to be accomplished. We also know that unfortunately those challenges span across the city and across the district, with 27 of the 38 facilities being ranked either poor or worse. And most importantly, obviously facilities are in and of themselves important, but we know, and so the need to really transform those facilities, not just for the facility's sake, but for, of course, the sake of our students and student learning. So we're very appreciative of the generosity and foresight of the city in working to develop this capital plan. And we'll talk through some of the mechanics and numbers of it, but to share a little bit of the kind of strategy behind how work has been identified in the capital plan. First, a lot of this is focusing on deep and transformational progress using this bond-funded work. And that's really for two reasons. The first is we know it allows us to develop and really transform facilities to those that our students deserve. But through some of the other bonuses that arrive with making 21st century learning enhancements to schools, you actually seek and receive a higher return and reimbursement from the state. So, as we do this transformational work, it's good for students, but it also is good for the taxpayers of Providence. We also know the importance of swing space. This has been something that the district has had challenges with historically. And I'll share a little bit more in detail later on in the presentation, but without swing space, you're really limited to how quickly you can do work and how cost effectively you can do work. Adding swing space into the portfolio in Providence really unlocks a lot of work that we haven't been able to do historically. We also know we need to be aggressive in seeking out additional sources of funds beyond the bond funding. So we won't go into great depth here, but there are other sources that we've tapped into, including the Facilities Equity Initiative from RIDE that allows us to expand our impact. And lastly, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this work is incredibly complex, it's incredibly hard, and it takes a lot of people working collaboratively. So we are gratefully appreciative of our colleagues across the city in the Department of Property, in the Finance Department, as well as RIDE, and it's really been a collaborative effort to get us to where we need to be. Now talk through a little bit when I talk about capital plan to really distill it into a couple buckets, and I'll do my best to explain it here, but I might ask either Chief Mancini or Director Carreño to chime in where I miss. But when we think of our capital plan, we think of it in two phases, and some of those are tied to the different bond releases. So phase one is $160 million worth of work, $100 million which is bond funded, $60 million which is PAYGO funded, and that work is already in progress. It includes major renovations at Spaziano Annex, Windmill, Costco High School, Pleasant View, and Hope High School. That work is already underway, and we can talk through some of the work that has been completed there, as well as some of the work that's coming up. But that work is targeted to be complete by June 30, 2023. This next phase two is really the purpose of today, but we wanted to share how it fit in with the larger picture. And that is roughly $170 million worth of work. That is $120 million in bond, $20 million in PAYGO, as well as some other $30 million we are seeking from the Facilities Equity Initiative to expand the impact. We'll talk through in more detail what that means in terms of what the projects are in the next few slides, but it includes the St. Joseph Hospital, as well as four like new renovations at schools across the district. Again, it's really important to emphasize how important the reimbursement is here. So while we're talking about over $300 million worth of work, the vast majority, 90%, is eligible for reimbursement from the state. So a lot of work can be done at limited impact, direct impact to taxpayers. So I don't know if Chief Mancini or Director Carreño, you'd like to share anything that I missed here around some of the intricacies of the funding. Please, by all means, go ahead.
Thank you, Chief Scott. Madam Chair, members of the committee, while I will point out that the phase one financed predominantly through the $160 million voter authority, a combination of $60 million PAYGO, which we were required to take because the state borrowed $250 million in that same bond issue cycle, and we were really required to draw that money first under a PAYGO. We were blessed with the $100 million bond issue because it generated a natural occurring premium of $23 million that enabled us to meet our match under the PAYGO and provide other benefits. As Chief Scott pointed out, those projects will be substantially completed by June 30 of 2023, at which time the net out-of-budget pocket cost associated with debt service, while it would have been $8 million out of $100 million bond financing, will cost the city $1.5 million. In effect, $1.5 million a year for 20 years to take in $160 million of project funding. Absolutely outstanding project, and absolutely outstanding collaboration between the state, the school district, and the city of Providence. Likewise, and similarly, with stage 2, while the bond authority is $140 million, there is extra incentive availability of an extra $30 million that could potentially come to the city. There are great chances that it might. In that regard, we need to submit the application with the maximum amount of projects that we believe we could afford should we receive that $30 million. That's why the project submission list will equal $170 million. If we're not entitled to, or we don't receive that award from the state, which we believe we will, then we're not governed by that and we're not obligated to $170 million. It'll reduce itself down to the $140 million board authority, $120 in bond and $20 million in pay-go. And as Chief Scott pointed out, he is exactly correct. Those are the projects that are before you, and they include the projects that were continuations of what we know as phase 1. So Chief Scott, continue, please.
Thank you so much. So let me do a deeper dive into the overall plan, and then I'll zoom in on the phase 2 work. So just talking big picture, like thinking through the outcomes of what we hope to achieve by these projects. I want to highlight kind of a few discrete outcomes we're looking to achieve. First, when you look across all the schools that will be impacted here, and
where's that feedback coming from? Can we ask everyone who's not speaking to just mute, because we're getting a lot of feedback? Please. Thank you. Please continue, Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, that's so much better. It's a lot of birds chirping there. Please continue, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So when we look at this work in totality, we the outcome is that we would be able to impact a significant number of students across the district, and by our calculations, roughly a third of students would be able to transform not a school that just had work done, but a school that had received significant changes to not just warm, safe, and dry, but to facilitate 21st century learning. We also know that this will allow us to impact roughly half of our lowest rated facilities, and we'll share a little bit about how things were prioritized, but really targeting both areas of need. And we talk about innovative new school models, but I'd also say the models that our parents have asked for. This includes the expansion of dual language, which if you want to talk to our resident expert, you can talk to Superintendent Montanez about how impactful that is. But we also know how parents have been seeking ways that they can have their students stay in the same school community for a longer periods of time through the evolution of schools to K-8 models. So this plan allows us to do that. And then as you'll see, a goal of this is we want to, like we said, we have needs across the city, and therefore we wanted to make impacts across the city. And so as we share and you look, you'll see that work is being done across the city, so that we hope it is, impacting the vast majority of citizens of Providence. When you look here, this is the kind of the geographic view of those projects. Those on the top are those part of phase 1 that are part of the work that is already in progress. And then phase 2, just to call those out, and we'll talk in more detail, that includes 21 P Street, which is the former St. Joseph Hospital, Mary Fogarty Elementary, Kazarian Elementary, Vesey Street Elementary, and then the second building related to Spaziano, which would add a 6-8 component to the Spaziano school community. Talk about how we got from the, again, we mentioned how we have broad needs across the city, and how we narrowed it to this list of the schools that we've included both in phase 1 and phase 2. Primarily, we looked at both schools that had high student needs as well as high facility needs. So by doing that, I tried to identify those schools that both would have dramatic facilities needs that would benefit greatly from this, but also our students that we wanted to prioritize and serve the most. In addition to that, we wanted to, as we mentioned before, focus on things like 21st century learning, not because that's just good for students, it absolutely is, but because it can yield greater reimbursement. So it's kind of a win-win of making transformations to facilities that our students deserve, while also seeking greater reimbursement for the taxpayers' Providence. We also wanted to find ways to increase access to pre-K-8 schools because we know that's in some of our turnaround action plan engagement, that is something that families have sought after. And again, looking to have impacts across the city. So taking that together, that's how we took the need of the schools we'd identified and got to the kind of more narrow list that we're looking at now. That's not to say there's more work to be done. There absolutely is. And we'll talk through some of the plans to address facilities that aren't included in phase 2. To share a little bit about the process. So, we had those priorities that identified schools, and then we're fortunate to have a school building committee that includes members of the community, members of the city government, members of PPSD and RIDE, school principals who represent a diversity of voices in the system. And those individuals allow us serve as sounding boards for this work. And so they've actually reviewed this work already, endorsed it, and we're excited for their partnership and their collective wisdom as it's allowed us to, throughout the process, but particularly as we get to these decisions around phase 2. I just have a handful more slides and then we'll open it up for more questions. But to do a little bit deeper dive into the individual projects. So we mentioned 21 P Street, the former St. Joseph's Hospital. That will be transformed into a new K-8 dual language school that will service students in a dual language environment from grades pre-K through grades 8. We'll also include 4 like-new renovations at VZ Street, Kazarian, Fogarty, and Spaziano. And I'll talk a little bit more about Spaziano because we'll talk about that in greater depth. But what I mean by like new or 21st century renovations, these are, in most cases, we'll have schools leveraging swing space, be able to move, temporarily relocate to one of the other swing spaces, whether that is 21 P Street or Windmill. And that allows us to do that work more in depth and more efficiently. And I'll explain how that works with swing space momentarily. But this allows us to really do, again, transformational work that is not just about roofs and walls and boilers. It's about new building spaces that we know our community has sought after. So that is both welcome centers for parents in the community, student collaborative spaces, as well as collaborative spaces for teachers. So we are seeking to make really dramatic changes at these schools. And Spaziano, which I'll tie into the next slide, has a component both in phase 1 and phase 2. For those of you who are familiar with Spaziano, there's currently the Spaziano building and the Spaziano Annex. The Spaziano Annex is currently a part of phase 1, with the main Spaziano building slated to be included in phase 2. What that allows us to do is to create a pre-K-8 campus that spans 2 nearby facilities. And while one may can kind of exist separately, you remain one school community that can benefit for a common enrollment pattern for students, but also kind of a consistent educational experience for students and staff. So by doing this work at Spaziano, we're ideally achieving a few goals. First, we're addressing the Spaziano Annex as part of phase 1, one of the lowest rated facilities in the state that will be transforming. That we're really thinking about instruction driving construction. If you look on the right-hand side, you'll see what we call a bubble diagram that talks about how, as a dual language school, you might actually need to design those facilities differently because the way the students and the staff interact with learning is different than what we've, what is our existing facilities have been built for. So it really allows us to build those facilities with the end goal of instruction in mind. This will also allow us to establish the first pre-K-8 campus in the district, again, to align with what we've heard from community feedback. To talk more in depth about the importance of swing space, and I'll highlight St. Windmill as 2 examples of this. But when you think of how we've had to do construction historically, we have students in the building and there's only so much work you can do without disrupting learning while students are present. So that either means working after hours or on weekends. And what that can lead is either longer construction times or higher costs. So what swing space allows you to do is to temporarily relocate a school into another facility, do very intensive work, but do it over a consistent period of time rather than having to cobble together different pieces of work. And that allows that work to be done more quickly, more in depth, and just as importantly, cost effectively, because you don't have to worry about paying time and a half or other things when you're working nights and weekends. You can actually do that in a dedicated way. So these allow us to both have schools swing into those spaces, but then those spaces will ultimately be the final home for a school that currently may have facility challenges, they can actually relocate there as we're doing, and that needs to be mapped out as we're doing some of our longer term facilities master planning. But really swing space is something that the district, has not benefited from historically, but it's really unlocked a lot of both the ability to do this work in depth, but also to do it in an efficient and cost-effective way. The last two slides before the team opens it up for questions, talking through some just the upcoming next steps. So we're presenting this. We've done some engagement already with our school building committee, with the city council. We'll also be doing that with our school board. And then we'll submit it to RIDE in February. That will become back to the full council in May of 2022, and the council then. We'll also need, as we match facilities, and need to think through our long-term facilities master plan in conjunction with these changes. And we're already starting to do this, but identifying needs for future bond funded projects. And the estimated amount of need we have in the district is over $700 million. This work, while incredibly ambitious, is roughly $300 million. So plenty more work to do. When we think of what that work entails, a lot of things that are already top of mind. One is revitalizing Mount Pleasant. We've already taken some proactive steps there, both internal to the building and external to the building, to address some facilities needs there. But we know that's a facility that we would prioritize in a future phase of work as we plan ahead. We'll continue to align it to community need, which includes expanding pre-K. As you saw at some of the facilities we've talked through here, like the P Street facility, we are already planning for expanded pre-K, and so we want to do that in any future phases of it. So lastly, we will continue to leverage additional resources. So as we mentioned earlier, the bond captures $140 million worth of work in phase 2, but we are seeking what we believe is additional funding through the Facilities Equity Initiative or additional PAYGO funding that will allow us to do this in years ahead. So we wanted to give you a little bit more of an overview than just phase 2, but really wanted to spend most of our time diving into phase 2 because it's an important first step in the process of applying to RIDE for this application. So I appreciate your time and attention, and the team is more than happy to answer any questions that you may have about phase 2 work.
Thank you very much. That was a great presentation and very thorough, and we appreciate that. Committee members, do you have any questions on this matter? Councilman Narducci.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Zach, thank you so much. That was a great presentation, and we know for a fact this is way overdue, many, many years overdue. And the reason why we got to this point is neglect of what should have been taken care of. When you see a school like the Narducci Learning Center right now being done and being told of the best that they have to get rid of out of the school and stuff, it's kind of sad. That's not good for people to be there now, but for how many years it was just didn't matter. In other words, I'm excited for the residents of Providence to see these transformations. I'm proud to be part of this progression moving forward. What I would ask is, as things progress, that maybe you come back to the committee, maybe like every so many months, and give us a full update on what's going on. I mean, you did a great job presentation on asking for the funding and letting us know where it's going. But moving forward, as a councilman in the area, I would like to know the progressive, and not just of the windmill of the whole plan itself. Thank you so much, and I'd like to really take a moment and thank everybody on the committee, because I know for a fact a lot of time was put in, and I didn't give up on, which is now called the Narducci Learning Center. It took a while to get to that point, but it just goes to show what we can do together when we continue to fight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Councilman Narducci. Thank you very much. Councilwoman Anthony?
Yes, I wanted to say thank you very, very much for this detailed presentation on phase 2. And I too echo my fellow councilman's request. You know, I would love to be more informed on the actual progress of phase one. And, you know, the progress of phase two when we start, because it's really important, I think, for us to understand exactly, you know, how the projects are being completed. Are they being completed on time? You know, the specifics of the construction, I think, is something that I would like more information on. So I would really appreciate, particularly when you finish phase two or even an update, I mean, phase one, if you give us an update, a more specific update, maybe at a different time on the phase one projects, I'd truly appreciate it.
Councilwoman, are you all set, Councilman Anthony? You're good?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councilwoman LaFortune has her hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Zach, for the detailed presentation, Superintendent, and all the committee members who were involved in this process. So I have a couple of questions. So I guess for me, one of the biggest concerns that I have is we're going to spend $75 million to build the new schools, but we still have many of our schools that are in disarray. I mean, literally, kids are using the bathrooms with broken doors, which I find to be problematic. Now, I appreciate that the Narducci Center is going to be used as a swing space, which we will need as you do these school constructions. But what happens to all of these other kids who are in our schools? Like I have children, I have a child still in the public schools. My other question is, within these projects, what is your maintenance plan? Because one of the biggest issues historically has been the lack of maintenance, even for schools that we have invested in, including Nathan Bishop. Nathan Bishop is a fairly new building in comparison to our other schools. However, there are things that are falling apart because of the lack of maintenance there. So if you could answer those few questions, please.
Absolutely. And others on the team, please feel free to chime in. So to the first question, to make sure I'm hearing you correctly, you know, when we talk about a school like Peace Street or Windmill, you know, it is not going to be a brand new school that, you know, it will ultimately be the home of one of our current schools that is in a facility that is, you know, is not up to par. So, what, you know, it's not I know what I heard you saying is like, is there a concern about schools that are in current disrepair? Like, of course, but the goal here is to, you know, in these schools that we've targeted, really do some fundamental construction to the challenges that they face. And then to your
That's not necessarily what I'm saying. What I'm saying specifically is we are going to invest $75 million on a brand new school that never existed before. Yet we still have schools that are part of our Providence public school system that has been in existence. They're not on the list. They're falling apart. I mean, Hope High School's on there with $20 million. I mean, just thinking about the theater alone, the cost of that just to repair and then expanding outside of the classrooms. So what I'm saying to you is, as you're building this brand new schools, and we still, because we have over 20 elementary schools, we have 22 elementary schools, 7 high schools, 7 middle schools, and 5 district charters, right? And that doesn't include Birch Vocational or the other St. Charles Vocational inside Hope High School. Well, Birch is part of Mount Pleasant. So how do we ensure that, like, what are we going to do to make sure that some of those buildings that are not listed in phase 1 and also in phase 2, how do we make sure that before we build a brand new school, the kids, because are we going to transfer all those kids into this new elementary school? Like, how do we make sure that we're also prioritizing their dilapidated buildings?
Right. So by investing money in the school, it will be serving Providence students, right? So those students will, at the beginning, it will be a school swinging into that, but then it will ultimately be a school that would probably vacate their building to end in the Narducci Learning Center or in, so it's not that we're just building this as a temporary space, like it will be the permanent home of a future school after we've gone through the swing space process. So it is, you know, whether we're investing that in that building or in another building, it will be a building with, you know, it's a building with students in it. So it's, I don't see it necessarily as a trade-off between investing in a new school versus an existing school. so long as they're, it's an active school with students in it. I can talk through the next question, maybe to answer some of it, which is, we agree that the problem, what we pointed to at the beginning, deferred maintenance is how we got here. And so one of the things that will be coming back likely in front of this group in the coming future is the potential revolving fund that exists in many other communities in the state that allows communities to use funds that get reimbursed at that 90% rate. So for every dollar you're putting into facilities, you're getting 90 cents back that can then be reinvested in those facilities and so on and so forth. So when you play that out over multiple years, a dollar can net you, $10, how long your time horizon is. So I say that to say with that revolving fund available, that allows us to do work in ways that is more proactive, rather than we're facing a building, we're facing a boiler, crisis. We can actually plan those out in advance because we have a steady flow of cash through that reimbursement, so that work is done over time. So that allows us to both be more proactive in some of those building issues, but also allows us to impact schools beyond those identified in phase 1 and phase 2. So that's something that will be likely back in front of this group in the coming weeks to discuss, because it allows us to augment the funds that are already in the phase 1 and phase 2.
So
Thank you very much.
Thank you. May I add one more thing? Chair, may I add one more thing, please?
Please stay on topic and yes, one more question, please.
I've been on topic. This is regarding the schools. So thank you, Zach. So the one thing I'll say is that we had a moratorium for quite some time that prevented the district from making any repairs on the schools. However, what I'm having a hard time, I guess, processing is that we still have, there's phase 1, right? That was after the first bond was passed, which I was part of an initiative to help pass. And in fact, the video, my kids are in there, right? The Fix the Schools initiative. And also with phase 2 really advocating for us to pass that bond. But yet I have not seen much progress in some of our schools that currently exist. Thinking about MLK, for years, we had buckets in the middle of the hallway because the roof was leaking. Still to this day, the bathroom in there smells when you walk by it. So I understand that eventually those schools are going to be permanent fixtures within the community, but we also have to think about the kids we are displacing from their neighborhood schools. Have we ensured that there's funding that's allocated for busing? We also have to think about the schools that are not listed. These kids are going into, again, these dilapidated buildings, which as the superintendent earlier said, the correlation between buildings, clean, safe, whatever buildings, and also learning and achievement, right? Those things go hand in hand. And so what I was hoping to see today, and I appreciate, this effort that's being done, but what I was hoping to see is a more comprehensive plan that really focuses on the schools that exists right now that our kids are going to on an everyday basis. And I think it's really unfair that our kids and families have been waiting, and teachers have been waiting this long. I'm a parent, so I know firsthand, and I've gone not just in my kids' buildings, schools, and other of our buildings, including Nathaniel Green, where I went to school, where the ceiling was chipping, right? So I'm kind of disappointed with this, that this is not more inclusive of some of the other buildings, and that we're spending a significant amount on a brand new school, which again, I guess is going to be used as swing space, but I would have liked to see some of those investments go into the schools that our kids are going to inside of every day.
Thank you very much. Okay, folks. First of all, I'd like to say well done to the finance team on this bonding for phase 1. Very impressive work. No small task, and I just wanted to give credit where credit is due. The execution of the financial transaction was well done. What is before us tonight is a first step, and it's actually in the application process that we already went through for phase 1 to make application to ride. And that's the presentation. I asked if we could expand the presentation tonight and make sure that that council committee and council members understood how the funds were already being used for phase one. You've done a great job, and it's just a little bit of a summary, but really what is before us is the phase two bond, first step in bond approval on phase two. I had one other question. Councilman Narducci's remarks were on the money. These funds are precious dollars, long overdue. We would love to be able to do all the schools all at once, but obviously there's limitations to our funding sources. On phase one, I noticed some of the target completions are 2023. I think I remember that 2022 were targeted dates. Is that pushed up a bit?
That was. I might ask Joe DeSanti from Downs Construction to talk through some of what led us, what's changed in the construction timelines.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, committee members, good evening. Joe DeSanti with Downs Construction. So yes, we focused on the first 6 schools which were warm, safe, dry, roof projects, masonry to get them, to stop leaking basically, right? So that was the emergency, getting those 6 done. A couple of the other schools, Classical, Pleasant View specifically, as we went through those facilities with the construction and design team, we recognized that there was a lot of other scope of work that had to be done as well. So that scope of work was added, but it also meant additional time for design. In addition to that, we've seen significant changes with the COVID escalation and material deliveries. So the schedules have been extended. I can report to you, though, that any of those schools that are under construction under the original phase one, which is the phase two now, will be done by June 30th, 2023. They have to be completed. And those are Classical, Pleasant View, Hope, Green, Hope Auditorium and Cupola, Windmill, and the Spaziano Annex specifically.
And what are you using for swing space now for the phase one construction?
Very good question. We've been talking a lot about swing space, and one of the challenges is on Pleasant View and Classical is because there's lack of swing space in the district, we have to use internal swing space. So we have to create swing space within the schools, which is costing a significant amount of money, and that money that could have gone to programming is now going to swing space. So we have to create the swing space, which is part of the delay as well. And that's why it'd be so beneficial in the future to have a school like Windmill that will eventually go back to a programming facility after we use it for swing space in 21 P Street. We'll be able to renovate, do bigger, better renovations, do them quicker, more cost effective in the future because of those swing spaces.
So Pleasant View particularly has a rec center associated with it. We have to be very careful that we're not putting our rec centers out of business when we're doing this construction. It's just their programming is just as critical as the school day's activities. So I'd like you to be mindful of that and make accommodations. I would be remiss if I didn't bring that up. I don't know if these other schools, I think phase one, the only rec center is Pleasant View. But, those are kids that, they get their meals there. After school programming is critical to many, many families. So I'd like you to be mindful of that. Okay, I don't have any other questions. I think we're all set. And again, this is just we are going to hear more. I think we heard the committee members request some updates as you go along through the phases. I think we're going to have you back for an update on phase one. This was more of a financial discussion, if you will, but we'll get you back to see how we're doing on phase one as we progress. But also, obviously, you're going to come back for phase two to get approval from this body for the financing package. With that, I'd like to entertain a motion to recommend approval of this item for the full council. May I have that motion?
Motion made, Madam Chair.
Motion made by Councilman Narducci. May I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Anthony. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carried. This is approved. Thank you very much all for your presentation. And again, this was well done, well put together, very informative, and we look forward to working with you going forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee, members of the council. Appreciate it.
Okay, now we go to the top of the docket. I apologize to item number 1. Let's read, that was an accommodation for Chief Mancini, who had another obligation and needed to go first. Not just because he wanted to go first, but Madam Clerk, please read item 1 into the record.
An ordinance adopting the American Rescue Plan Act grant budget for the period of January 6, 2022 through December 31st, 2024. The following has been invited. Stephanie Fortunato, Director of Art, Culture, and Tourism.
Anybody else? Okay, who do we have that wants to speak on this topic this evening? Stephanie, anyone else in the group?
I am joined by Deputy Director Arujo.
Okay, wonderful. And we have Diane and Kristen Adama. Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Wonderful. Welcome to all. I'd like to swear everyone in at this point who will be speaking or presenting on this topic or answering any questions that this body may have. Let's do that now.
Please, everybody, raise your right hand. Do you swear on the penalty of perjury that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, everyone. Thank you. So we're here tonight to talk about arts, tourism, and hospitality budget. In total, it's 7.7 million. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and it's part of the Arpa budget that we're looking at. So whoever would like to give us, to start us off, to explain the components of it? Diana, would that be you?
Hi, everyone. Well, I actually would defer to Stephanie Fortunato and Lizzie Arujo for the presentation this evening. Last time I gave an overview and did a very brief one-liner. Yeah, so I'll leave it to them.
Okay. Stephanie, lead us, please.
All right. Well, thank you, Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee and council for the opportunity to present details of the proposed $7.7 million investment in art, tourism, and hospitality in the next American Rescue Plan Act ordinance. I am going to share my screen. All right, can everyone see that?
Yes, thank you.
The creative economy and partner industries, including hospitality and tourism, have been financially and emotionally devastated by the global pandemic, and yet they are critical to our economic recovery and our resilience. For the past year, ACT has been working with partners across city government and beyond to develop plans for the creative sector's recovery. And I had the opportunity to present these proposals to the City of Providence's COVID-19 Recovery and Resiliency Task Force last August. And then the community had the opportunity to comment as follow-up. Since the final rules about the allowable uses of municipal Arpa dollars were published last month, the staff has been strategically designing creative economic development strategies that we will discuss tonight with an eye on compliance, feasibility, capacity, and the potential impact.
Stephanie, I have to interrupt.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I need to enter 2 items reminded by my clerk into the record. We have 2 exhibits tonight. We have a memo to me and the Committee on Finance from you and Lizzie, and it basically summarizes your ask. I would like to entertain a motion to call this on memo Exhibit 8. May I have that motion? May I have that motion to call this item Exhibit 8, please?
So moved.
Motion made by Councilwoman Anthony, seconded by Councilman Taylor. All in favor, aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. We have Exhibit 8, Also on this matter, we have 6 letters of support that have come in to the clerk's office. They'll be appropriately posted. Let's call this Exhibit 9. May I have that motion? Motion made by
So moved.
Councilwoman Anthony, seconded by Councilman Taylor. All in favor, aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. We have Exhibit 8 and 9 to the presentation, and I'm sorry I interrupted you, Stephanie. Please continue.
All good and timely, because I was just going to say you should have a packet to accompany this presentation with additional details. And on pages 2 to 7, you'll find a summary followed by a budget document. In addition to speaking to the needs of the sectors, I'm going to focus on the structures of the programs and initiatives, the time frame and deliverables. And I will also note potential partnerships and supplemental funding opportunities where it is relevant. But please let me know if you have any questions along the way.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the Department of Art, Culture, and Tourism, we have a dual mission to integrate arts and culture into the community's life while showcasing Providence as an international cultural destination. And I think we can all acknowledge the healthy tension within these aims. We are always weighing the needs of residents and businesses with those of visitors to our city. This balancing act is certainly present as we think not only about the needs of art, tourism, and hospitality, but how this fits in amidst all of the other areas of investment that are needed for Providence, not just to recover, but to thrive. As you can see from this slide, the arts have been an economic driver in the city of Providence and throughout the country for many years. And we're looking at some statistics about the pre-pandemic state of the arts, showing that the creative industries have a multiplying effect on economies. As an economic driver at the national, regional, and local scale, supporting the creative economy is essential to our overall economic resilience and recovery. The cultural ecosystem is a web of interdependent industries that support a wide range of the local workforce. The creative sector encompasses small businesses, hotels and restaurateurs, venues and parking lots, conventions and events, caterers and support staff, and more. Their jobs are to provide critical infrastructure for the cultural sphere. These workers are interdependent with individual artists, nonprofit cultural organizations, presenters, filmmakers, musicians, and other local business owners. And Indiana University recently spoke about the value of investing in the arts, noting that a growth in arts employment has a positive and causal effect on overall employment, which you certainly see with these numbers. The impact, though, on the industry has been quite devastating. The pandemic made it difficult for many artists to work when presentation was no longer possible at local entertainment values. And here are just some of the statistics about the impact to the arts in terms of the workforce, as well as the disproportionate impact to BIPOC organizations who were more than 55% likely to report that they lacked the financial resources needed to return to in-person programming than 38% of non-BIPOC organizations. Individual creatives were among the most impacted, reporting an average of $21,000 in loss of income. And while arts jobs have rebounded, they are still down from those pre-pandemic levels. This was ripped from the headlines, as they say. You know, since the public health restrictions were lifted around Memorial Day, Providence has seen the return of many events and activities. And as we can see from this headline, PPAC was proud to talk about Hamilton and the success and the impact on our local downtown economy. Many of the performing arts and entertainment venues sustain themselves with critical federal aid programs, PPP, the Shuttered Venues Program, and CARES Act dollars. Unfortunately, major disruptions to creative industries do continue as these programs have been sunsetting and they're no longer available to many of the venues that allowed them to survive throughout the pandemic. Many of Providence's legacy organizations who were reliant on the Shuttered Venues grants from the U.S. Small Business Administration to keep afloat are by no means recovered. As of July 2021, these organizations have received an average of $1,329,818 to cover the loss of revenue from pandemic-induced shutting of doors. And while Hamilton was a great success right after Thanksgiving, unfortunately, this unpredictability with the Omicron outbreak did hit our local economy when a case of COVID at Trinity Rep caused cancellations. It's the domino effect in some ways of the ongoing public health crisis. This extends to restaurants and others who count on these businesses. Trinity Rep's first show back after a 20-month in-person pause was the Christmas Carol, and they were scheduled for 61 performances through January 2nd. Ticket sales for this year's production were down nearly $200,000, roughly 14% from the budgeted goal for the show, which was already set about $200,000 less than what they had brought in for their 2019 production. Trinity Rep had to cancel and refund ticket holders for 11 performances when a cast member got COVID. These cancellations affected roughly 3,500 ticket holders and resulted in a $250,000 loss in revenue for Trinity Rep. It impacted neighboring restaurants and parking garages when the show was canceled. So you can see how this impacts not just the districts, but also all of the partner industries. Oh, what happened here? Oh, I'm going to the show. Hold on, let me come back to the presentation. We can all watch the clip another time. How do I get back then? I get to watch that. All right. So we can also see the impact of the pandemic on our hotels. The Providence hotel occupancy has plummeted. While the southern half of Rhode Island saw record-breaking numbers over the summer, the Providence area did not fully recover because meetings, conventions, and sports, the backbone of the tourism economy here, were unable to take place. Over 2021, the CVB reported 70 million direct spend losses for Providence from meetings, convention, and sporting events unable to take place. Addressing lost public sector revenue from the hotel taxes is one area of concern to the municipality. But this bucket of funds with its 4 prongs will create reasons for people to also stay in these hotels. Kristen Adamo is here, and I believe we'll share more later about the impact to the hotel industry. So what are we going to do about this? The American Rescue Plan has several provisions throughout it, specifically addressing the tourism, travel, and hospitality industries. In the final rule, it states that these dollars are to respond to the public health emergency or its negative impacts, including assistance to households, small businesses, and nonprofits, or to aid impacted industries such as tourism, travel, and hospitality. So these industries called out throughout this act, and it recognizes that the problems within the creative sector, the tourism and hospitality industries, are citywide concerns. These are jobs in restaurants, hotels, nonprofits, and businesses located in every Providence neighborhood. And this is a photograph taken by Eric Sung, a professor at Providence College, who they've gotten some funding from the National Endowment for the Arts recently to do research on the impact of the arts as a community building tool. But he photographed all of the venues when they were empty during the lockdown. So what I'm presenting this evening is a community-driven vision for the recovery of arts, tourism, and hospitality in the city of Providence. 3 interdependent industries devastated by the global pandemic and a series of public health restrictions that were put in place to mitigate the spread. I understand that you are facing a myriad of challenges that you will have to make difficult decisions about how best to use these resources. We hope that you will see these plans as a way to address revenue loss, as well as to drive the much needed economic activity in the city of Providence. And that was from the task force report about the community engagement survey about how the dollars should be spent. And what we're looking at now are the recommendations. So you'll see there are 6 line items. I will take us through each of these line items that make up the $7.7 million. These strategies are intended to support the creative economy workforce, expand public programming and events, support Providence's tourism industry to catalyze economic activity across the city, invest in arts organizations, particularly BIPOC organizations, fund neighborhood-based programming, and provide grants to artists for public art projects. Okay, so I'm going to start with the direct investments that we will be making to named organizations in the ordinance. And I'm starting with PVD Fest and our producing partner, First Works. While ACT endeavors to support arts and culture across the city.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
Madam
Excuse
Chair.
me, Councilman? Yes, Councilman Narducci.
Can you just explain to me quick, because I'm gonna have to be getting off. Can you explain to me quick of the $4 million of the cultural facilities? Like what is that and how is that being spent, please?
Yeah.
Councilman, when do you have to leave us? Councilman, when do you have to leave us?
In about 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
I'm going to ask, that's not fair. I'd like to go through the presentation, Councilman. I hope you can stay. This is a really important topic. I have questions as well, but we're not going to interrupt the presentation.
Yeah,
so
no,
please.
I can't. I'm not going to
Okay. Okay. I will brief you after, but please continue the presentation.
Right.
Thank you.
I will jump ahead to cultural facilities and then I can go back.
Nope, I want you to start. Keep continuing.
All right. Let me go back. Sorry, now I've gotten myself.
I got a little discombobulated myself there.
All right. So PBD Fest is our signature destination arts festival. It is our largest impact festival event in which we reach the broadest audience and maximize our spillover economic influence on the hospitality sector. The proposal is for $275,000 for PVD Fest, which would be directed to our producing partner, First Works. This is going to be structured as a sub-grantee agreement with an amendment to the existing contract with First Works. They were awarded by the Board of Contract and Supply the award for producing partner. Their scope of work includes project management, fiscal management, fundraising, curation, programming and education, production and operations, and marketing services.
Is this amount, and excuse me, is this amount in addition to the 275 that is in our regular budget for PVD Fest?
So this is for the June 2022 festival. The 275 that is general fund budget was for the festival in 2021. If you remember last year, we did a distributed festival. So we did events and activities over the summer. And when we decided last year with the budget submission that the June 2022 festival should come from the ARPA funding bucket. So we just funded one festival in FY22.
So we're not going to have that 275 in the regular budget, city budget. Can someone answer that question for the administration, please? From the administration, is that the plan?
This is for 2022, though.
That's fine.
The next budget submission for FY23 will include $275,000 for the June 23 festival. Does that make sense?
That's fine. Okay.
We didn't want to put two festivals in one general fund ask.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So PVD Fest, I think we all know this is our signature festival. We like to say we bring together artists from around the world and around the corner. It's live music, dance, food, visual art, and it really is a showcase for the creative capital as we take over public spaces, parks, and outdoor stages downtown. We have been working with First Works since the beginning of the festival. In fact, we had a joint grant from the NEA through the Art Town program to kick off that first festival. And First Works has a demonstrated track record of working with the city on these amazing outdoor experiences. We're looking at here the impact from 2019, in which the PVD generated $1.97 million in total expenditures from the festival and our audiences. You can also see that since the festival has begun, we have welcomed nearly 500,000 people to the city to experience all that the creative capital has to offer. This is a platform for not only local artists and arts organizations, but for that entire web of creative economy supporters and participants. It's a vehicle for economic stimulation, and it is a symbol of our adaptation and creativity. There are many small businesses who are actively involved, as well as others who receive passive benefits from the festival. And we've heard from several small businesses owners downtown, including some other restaurateurs, that this is their biggest weekend of the entire year. So we know that there is a direct impact for local businesses who benefit from the festival. The second organization to receive direct funding from the ARPA municipal dollars is the Providence Convention and Visitors Bureau. They will receive $500,000 over 3 years, and the scope of work will include neighborhood outreach as well as leisure advertising. The Providence Warwick Convention and Visitors Bureau is a 501c6 organization and a trusted partner. In a typical year, they book about 270 events with a direct spend impact of more than $80 million. Businesses booked by the CVB, excuse me, what's my place? The CVB, though, will be an important partner in developing our neighborhood tourism offerings. And I know Kristen has a presentation that maybe we can hear from her later on to offer some more of the details. But again, this is a 3-year sub-grantee agreement with the CVB that is proposed. Okay, the next area of investment is in government employment. The use categories at the top reflect the rules and regulations of this funding. So AC proposes hiring a production coordinator who would be dedicated to implementing these Providence rescue plans. This is a allowed but unfunded position within our supplemental personnel table. The production coordinator was unfunded during the pandemic when we were asked to make spending cuts. So this position is vacant and will be necessary to implementing the programs and activities that are proposed here. We also have an unfunded yet allowed position for a sponsorship and marketing coordinator, and we propose using 50% ARPA funding, and we will work through the general fund submission process for the other 50%. Again, this is a limited position that will spend half their time dedicated to the implementation of these ARPA programs. And in your packet, you have job descriptions for both. Our first bucket is for arts, culture, and special events.
I don't have that. Is that in our package?
No. It is in. It is in.
Okay. Okay. First of all, this presentation that you're making is a little different than the package that my committee has received. So it's been updated. So we need a updated presentation. We don't have any job descriptions. So we need, if you haven't sent that to the clerk, please do so, and we'll get that distributed out to the committee.
Okay.
Okay.
That's in that packet. I thought that was in that 200-page document, but I will confirm that.
Yeah, I'll just, I'm so sorry if I may, Stephanie had sent it to the clerk yesterday. It's the memo that was mentioned earlier, Madam Chair. I believe following it continues the presentation, and then following the presentation, there are the job descriptions. It's about 179 pages, another very long.
No, we don't have that.
Okay, we'll send it again.
No one's fault. We just need to marry it to this presentation. You've got it on the screen. I appreciate that, and we'll follow up and get so the clerk will look for it. Could you be kind enough to resubmit it?
Absolutely.
So there's no confusion. That's okay. Please continue.
Okay, so we have $1,225,000 in ARPA funds that are proposed for special event support, ensuring that ACT has staffing and technical capacity to help residents, nonprofits, and for-profit businesses that shape our city's culture and commerce to create a sense of welcome, predictability, and ease for locals and visitors. The community engagement process called for expanding public programs and events, investing in arts organizations, particularly BIPOC-led organizations, funding neighborhood-based programming. And so with this bucket, we will be developing American Recovery Act reimbursement grants for nonprofit arts and cultural organizations, small hospitality, tourism, and creative businesses, all eligible entities within this funding pool. Awards of $10,000 to $50,000 will be available and will allow for also expanded special event support designed to support tourism. We'll be hiring the production coordinator from this bucket of money, and we'll be purchasing equipment and retaining contractors to support special events administration in neighborhoods throughout the city. So I've given you a budget breakdown, but this calls for $750,000 that we'll put out as an RFP for those grants for nonprofits and small businesses, $40,000 for a contractor to help administer those grants, the hiring of the ACT production coordinator for 2 years at $286,875, a full-time employee with benefits. And then the special events equipment and contractors, $250,000 for the period covered by this ordinance. The grant program is designed to address the needs of eligible small businesses and nonprofit arts and cultural organizations, including the negative impact and revenue loss, financial insecurity, increased costs, including uncompensated increases in the service need, capacity to weather financial hardship, challenges covering payroll, rent, and other operating costs.
Well, how are you going to issue these grants? How are you going to find these organizations? Is it an RFP that you're issuing for them?
Absolutely. Yep, we will issue an RFP through the Board of Contract and Supply. We would submit the request to the Board of Contract and Supply to advertise upon passage of the ordinance. And then we would make the selections based on the rubric for eligibility and the criteria for selection around the impact and need.
How many organizations do you anticipate will you likely be able to serve? You say the awards are 10 to 50,000.
Yep,
what's the average?
The total available investment would be $750,000, and that would be available over this entire time frame of eligibility. I can calculate that, what the average might be as a follow-up to this.
That's okay. It's okay. Yeah. We'll follow up. Yep. Please continue. Thank you.
Yep. So in terms of supporting these kinds of entities, there are some existing programs that I want to note. The ACT Project Fund for the Arts makes $500 micro grants for events and awards for nonprofits between $500 and $4,000. In FY22, we had $165,000 available for that purpose. We are also responsible for the special events administration, and so we are doing that work with an interdepartmental city service team. There are also additional small business resources and support through OEO and PBLF, and those are also intended to help these impacted entities. Rhode Island Commerce recently introduced Rhode Island Rebounds, and so those are grants that are available to small businesses. And both RISCA and Rich have proposed another round of Rhode Island charge grants with the state's ARPA dollars. However, that is still a pending request at the state level. At the federal level, there are ARPA awards that have been made through the National Endowment for the Arts, the National Endowment for the Humanities, and IMLS. They were recently announced the latest round. So far, there are no plans for future investments, but there are several pending federal programs that may or may not move forward to help support, again, these impacted industries. I just want to say in terms of private funding options and earned revenue, well, the need and demand remains. Projections around corporate sponsorship, individual and philanthropic giving remain just projections that are inconsistent and somewhat unreliable at this moment in terms of priorities and future projections. There's just a lot of uncertainty in that market still. The special events support here, this is $250,000 that we would use to buy materials to help support special events. So the special events would be neighborhood festivals, the outdoor dining and retail events that have been so popular throughout the pandemic, and other special events. We are thinking about the equipment that is needed by many different event producers, barriers, signage, PPE, et cetera, as well as some of the staffing supports and services that are needed, like private security or sanitation, golf carts for the fire departments to help improve mobility in crowds. This is the kind of equipment that we would propose purchasing, again, through an RFP process using the public procurement methods in place with the Board of Contract and Supply. We would propose doing this for the 2022 event season, which really kicks off this spring with the St. Patrick's Day Parade and Festival. Mark your calendars, everyone. Big events are coming back, actually. And so we would purchase materials for the 22 season and then evaluate that at the end of the season, and as needed, go back for more materials on 23 or figure out if what we had was sufficient.
Can you speak to the neighborhood festivals? What are you thinking of? What will that look like?
Yeah, so, those grants would support nonprofit cultural organizations and small businesses who could meet that eligibility criteria, Chairwoman. And so, the merchants associations, for instance, that are responsible for many of the outdoor festivals that happen in neighborhoods throughout the city, they would be eligible for those grants. So would help to support the events and activities that they have been doing. Many of those events came together during the pandemic out of necessity, either because businesses needed more space, for people to browse and feel comfortable being together, or because there were restrictions about the number of people who could be indoors. So I think those outdoor events and activities really are here to stay. And I know we've heard from many neighborhood associations or merchants groups who would like to keep doing that work. And so this would be one way in which we could continue to support those events and festivals and other activities.
Certainly something great that came out of COVID that we can point to for sure. Can you just name a couple of those, just for the folks that are listening, just to give us a couple of examples?
Yeah.
Some of the more shining neighborhood
Absolutely.
events.
I think the Atwell's Alfresco event, that outdoor dining event, was something that was really well received by locals and visitors alike. Wayland Square merchants did a couple of great events around the holidays. In downtown, they did a great outdoor retail event. So I think there's, there've been a couple of beloved events already that could be supported by this. And I should note that in this current fiscal year, 22, we have waived city service fees that were associated with producing those events. We are proposing in FY23 to resume our regular city service fee structure, but these grants would offset some of those costs for the organizers of those events.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yep. Thank you for that. Please continue.
All right, so cultural facilities. This is an investment in our destination and tourism. It's an investment in construction and arts and culture jobs. And it really is about the resiliency of our cultural organizations. We have received several community proposals from the community engagement process about supporting the construction renovation of existing facilities. And so this bucket responds to that. So this will support eligible entities with the restoration and renovation of existing facilities, arts and cultural spaces in municipal buildings, and programs and services that address negative economic impact. Awards would top out at $750,000, but these are meant to be significant investments that will allow for the stability of organizations that are looking to take on a capital project like this. It is a new program for the city of Providence. We, of course, will work closely with the CDBG program officers to make sure that we are thinking about impactful and aligned investments. This program will complement the state's cultural facilities program that takes place via RISCA and the Rhode Island Cultural Heritage and Historic Preservation Agency. In Providence, these have really provided a tremendous investment, really once in a generation investments in many of the cultural destinations that all of us think about when we think about Providence as Providence's destinations and attractions. It helps to preserve the city's historic building stock, creating and sustaining construction and cultural jobs. One thing about the state program, though, is that it is funded with a bond and there is a required one-to-one match. And what has happened during the pandemic is that many entities are having trouble meeting the demands of that one-to-one match. The capital campaigns that they once projected are just sort of turned upside down. They need new models for raising those dollars. In addition, the increases in construction costs have made some of those original projections just not fit within this current market. And so those are some of the negative impacts that we would hope that this program would help to address. And we would like to find a way to really help those organizations that already have some of the money in hand and they just need to be able to cross the finish line there. So that is the cultural facilities needs and bucket here. Again, it would be an RFP process through the Board of Contract and Supply. There's $800,000 for public art to encourage tourism. So public art helps to develop Providence's profile as a public art destination and facilitating the installation of large-scale murals, temporary public art installations in neighborhoods and residencies that have transformed rec centers, parks, and other civic spaces. We've really put Providence, the creative capital, on the map as a place to be able to find public art throughout the city. This investment would not only encourage tourism and maintain the momentum for this important work, but it really does further cement our identity as building a public art destination. So this is a proposed program in partnership with the Providence Housing Authority and the Healthy Communities Office. And actually, in terms of the American Rescue Plan, it has two allowable uses. It is both about economic impact as well as public health. We are proposing 12 18-month residencies for artists. Selected artists who would participate in a creative community health worker training that ACT piloted, which would allow those artists to become artist facilitators with an option for community health worker certification, and would lead to the development of 12 permanent public artworks in PHA communities throughout the city. So this is based on a successful program that we ran last year, PHA's Hartford Park community, and we had muralist Agonza, who did 2 large-scale murals, permanent murals at that PHA site, and it was incredibly successful. It also is an opportunity for us to really push forward a pilot program that we ran last year with the community health worker training. We would use our standard art selection process to select the artists who would participate in this program and go through the Board of Contract and Supply for an RFP for the public art administrator who would help to curate these projects.
How is the housing made available? How does Providence Housing make space available?
So it would be exterior space. So the mural that we did at Hartford Park, there are 2 murals on the outside. So that's how they.
I thought they were providing housing.
No. They're providing wall space.
Gotcha.
Sites at the spaces.
Housing would be nice too.
Would be great. I think Chairwoman, we'll talk about that after. Maybe you have some ideas.
I think that's a good plan.
Okay, so this program, it's a creative workforce program. It's an opportunity for interdepartmental collaboration. It also allows us to align the program design and implementation with the Healthy Communities community health worker training. The city will place community health workers at PHA, and the artists in residence will work with the community health workers to engage residents in the development of those permanent artworks. So this is really an investment in the city collection of art, as well as the people who live in the city. The proposed funding will support project management, artist stipends, materials, and training artist facilitation. I mentioned that it builds on the existing program that we had done with the creative community health workers, as well as that residency at Hartford Park. And PHA also had a team of community health workers doing direct crisis management last year, but now that team is down to 1, and it was a really impactful program. So this is a great way, again, to build on the momentum and lessons learned and to make an investment that I think will have a significant impact. We are looking for braided funding for this program, supplemental HCO funding with the help with the community health workers and peer counseling and mental health support as connected to justice reform will assist this program. And ACT is also in the process of applying to the National League of Cities for a technical assistance program for improving community health and resilience through the arts. Okay, so I will go to the tourism grants here, but I think that is a kind of incredible program with a lot of effects. So now I want to talk about the Tourism and Marketing Fund. This is $700,000. It is critically important that the city not only produce, facilitate, and build platforms for great artists to enhance its economic vitality, but also that it tells the story of these artists for those who don't live and breathe the culture of the city each day. This $700,000 is intended for tourism grants. It addresses the gaps in the hotel revenue tax that has been funding many events and activities through the Providence Tourism Council. Those plummeting numbers do have an impact on the amount of grants that are available. These grants are intended to highlight Providence, the creative capital, Providence as a center for arts, culture, food, architecture. And so we would be issuing an RFP for a service provider to provide fiscal management and grants administration for these tourism grants. We would obviously advertise through the Board of Contract and Supply, and we would target being able to issue some of these grants as early as summer if possible, based on whenever the ordinance would pass. So I just wanted to include some of the great support for funding arts, tourism, and hospitality that we heard from the community through the community engagement process. I think there is wide recognition that not only have the arts been really negatively impacted, but that there is a tremendous impact of investing in the arts. These funds, as one recipient said, the city benefits from the arts and culture, encouraging tourism. And one of the reasons they moved to Providence was because Providence is a progressive and upcoming city in New England, more affordable than other cities. So, I think this is a real destination. It helps us to attract new residents as well as to retain the creatives and others who benefit from these art, tourism, and hospitality industries. From some of those letters of support, we see coalitions of arts leaders coming together to really speak about the powerful impact that making these investments can have, not only on our local economy, but on our community more wider and the community building that is possible. So that is an overview. I am happy to answer any questions that you might have, and thank you for your consideration of this community-driven vision for investments in art, tourism, and hospitality. We do believe that these plans strategically address the negative economic impacts of the pandemic, that they're feasible to implement, and that these are platforms to stimulate the local economy by working and aiding the three sectors who are in tremendous need, but the potential for amplification that exists is really tremendous beyond the borders of these industries. These are applicable uses of ARPA funds, and we hope that you will consider these proposals.
Wonderful. Please stay with us, okay? I think we're going to let, is Kristen Adamo, I know she asked me to make a presentation and to complement your presentation, Stephanie. Kristen, are you with us and are you there?
I am,
Okay.
Councilwoman.
So, Councilwoman Anthony, I see you have your hand up, but let's let them get through their presentation and then we'll ask questions, okay? Please continue. Welcome, Kristen.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you, members of the council. Unfortunately, I don't think I have screen share privileges, so I'll just walk you through a little bit of what we have planned. So as Stephanie said, we're 501c3, and if you don't know who we are or you didn't prior to the pandemic, that's probably normal. The bulk of the work that we do is outside of Rhode Island, and we're always trying to get people to come to Rhode Island and stay in our hotels. We are responsible for marketing the city of Providence as a leisure destination. We market Providence and Warwick to meetings and conventions. And we also represent the entire state of Rhode Island with our Rhode Island Sports Commission. As Stephanie said, we book between $75 and $80 million worth of direct spend business into the market. The bulk of that does take place in Providence. And as I said, that's direct spend. So there's no multipliers. It's food, beverage, hotels, all of that. And we're going to talk tonight about leisure tourism, because in crafting my ask, I did want to point out, I don't expect the city of Providence to fund all of my needs. We have massive shortages, and I am looking at Commerce, and we have been in really healthy, productive talks with them. So the ask that I'm asking for from the city of Providence focuses on leisure, because that directly benefits the city as a whole and really will enable us to help the people who need it most, which are the artists, the small businesses, all of that. So that's a little bit about my ask. We essentially are your leisure tourism marketing agency. The things you may know us for are goprovidence.com, which is our website that has about 4 million site visits a year. We do an extensive advertising program. We have about 178,000 social media followers over 2 platforms. We produce collateral material, the most successful of which has been our series of walking tours. We work on events like Providence Restaurant Weeks. We support people who don't have marketing infrastructure, like neighborhood associations or small businesses or nonprofit arts organizations, and we help them with their marketing. Public relations, America's Favorite City is probably our greatest hit, but we've done a lot with CNN, New York Times, all of those kinds of things. And really one of the things that we're going to talk about tonight is our visitor services program, which is run out of the convention center. But what we're hoping with your help is to really broaden our scope. Just a little quickly about the effect of the pandemic on tourism. We talked about the meetings that we book, and unfortunately, because of COVID, we had a lot of business that we had to cancel or postpone. So just in meetings and conventions and sporting events that we book alone, we've lost $78 million in direct spend revenue in Rhode Island. And unfortunately, $70 million of that took place in Providence. So that has widespread repercussions for us as a municipality, and for me as the head of an organization funded by hotel taxes. We really feel, that need. And we're slow to come back. Corporate travel, which is one of our bread and butter industries here in Providence, isn't back. Meetings and conventions are coming back, but our experts predict they won't be back until probably mid-2024. So that really impacted the hotels. And Stephanie showed you a chart. And what that really said was between 2019 and 2020, Providence hotels lost 70% of their revenue. Between 2019 and 2021, we're still at a 35% loss. So while you're hearing the southern half of the state has been recovering and some of those destinations had their best year ever, we really didn't. We have a long way to go. And the number, we throw a lot of numbers around, but the one that's most important to me is 13. And that's how many hotel rooms it takes to employ a housekeeper. And at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to bring back jobs. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about what we're planning to do with that $500,000. A big part of what we want to do is neighborhood outreach through our visitor services program. We've spent a lot of the pandemic using it as an opportunity to reimagine how we can do things better. And one of the things that we really want to do is broaden that visitor services. We hired a brand new manager who is fluent in Spanish, and we also have other options of translation services. And what we want to do, and we've begun talking to the city about, is getting out into the neighborhoods. We want to get them more involved in tourism. And then on the flip side, we want to go out to these big events and bring tourism to where the visitors actually are. If someone's coming in for Waterfire, we want them to know there's a lot of other arts opportunities throughout the city. So why is this important? This is important because I don't think that really many small businesses realize that tourism can be an opportunity for growth. You have a neighborhood restaurant and you might have locals and regulars that come in, and that's great. That's your base. Tourism can layer on that. And so this is a way for us to help increase revenue throughout the city. The other thing is that selfishly, this is great for us. The way people travel has changed. People don't want to stay just in one neighborhood. They don't want to stay in their hotel. They want to get out and explore. And the idea of touristy venues is an outdated notion. People want authentic experiences. So for us to work with more of the city, that really allows us to develop more content, more programming, and be more attractive to visitors. And the third piece of that is all the great work that's being done in infrastructure and redevelopment. We have new stories to tell. If you haven't been to the Valley neighborhood in a while, it's amazing. The work that's being done. We have more infrastructure. So the fight is going to be tougher for tourism. And so for us, we need these new opportunities. So how do we do that? So a couple of examples. One is, I hope everybody knows about Providence Restaurant Weeks. And I think there's more opportunity to get more people involved. We typically, in a good year, which would probably be 2019, had about 100 restaurants when we do it. And I have people who start, asking us when it's going to be, asking for menus in November for January. And I think there's a way to engage more people. We have a wildly successful walking tour program. It focuses on neighborhoods, but it focuses on other things. Our most popular one is a tour of early Black history that we developed in 2019. And I think there's more opportunities for that. I'm a Wansket girl. I grew up in Wansket. I went to St. Anne's Church. The architecture of that church is inspiring. And there's churches like that all over the city. And it's a great way to get people out. It's a great way to show the cultural heritage, because I know so many people identify their culture with their church. So that's just one example. Stephanie talked a lot about the mural program, and she and I have been kicking around an idea for years, which is we're really a living, breathing art gallery, our entire city. And I think there's a lot that we can do with that notion. So that's some of the examples of the neighborhood outreach work. The second part, while not as exciting, is probably as important, and that's leisure advertising. We worked very hard. I personally have been at it for 17 years, building Providence's brand and visibility as a tourism destination. And cities, unfortunately, have been slower to recover. And so we really need to invest in leisure advertising. And quite frankly, I just don't have the resources. The majority of my funding is from hotel tax funding. So we're doing the best we can with what we have. But at the end of the day, this market is getting more and more competitive. So what we want to do is really take the resources that we have and then add this contribution and develop a full-fledged leisure ad campaign that really focuses on the entire Northeast Drive market. And the great thing about the work that we do in advertising is it's a media buy that includes quantitative results. So you can actually measure the success of our program and your investment. We need a little flexibility in that too. And that's not something I'm able to do. Like when the airport gets a new airline, I really haven't been able to seize on the opportunity that Breeze Airlines, for example, has presented to me. And then things pop up. My favorite one is every time the Patriots have a home game and they make the playoffs, I'm able to do ad campaigns and we get those Indianapolis or Houston fans to come to Providence instead of Boston because it's cheaper and easier. Things like that. So that's the scope of what we're looking to do. And the budget for that is we broke it over 3 years. So I think to do neighborhood outreach the way in which we want to do it would be about $210,000. We're looking at $70,000 per year. And that's the development of digital content. So that's videos, photos, blog posts, social media posts, additions to the walking tour series. Stephanie and I have talked about having a street team at events with branded Go Providence logos able to answer your questions. One of the things we're really excited about is more opportunities for ticketing platforms electronically so that people who are coming in can plan their trip. I'm one of those people. I'm a planner. I want to get everything organized, printed out, know where I'm going to buy my tickets, know where I'm going for dinner. And that is one of the capabilities that we're looking to invest in. And then on the leisure side, we're looking at about $290,000. That's about $97,000 per year. We will also, at the CVB, we are looking to hope to get to about $100,000 to $200,000 ourselves. So this would augment this and really let us come out of the gate really strong for the spring and summer season. And then the final thing I really wanted to talk about is we're big believers on proving ourselves. And we report back to a lot of masters already. We work with the Convention Center Authority, and we of course report back to the state. So what I would like to do, and in addition to what Stephanie and we would need to give her as a sub-grantee, is really report back to the council. Here's my analytics. Here's how I spent the money, and here's how we complied with the regulations put forth by Arpa. So that's in a nutshell what we're looking at doing. And I thank you for the opportunity to consider this and for considering the arts organizations. I know it's really difficult. I mean, I can't sit here and tell you that the work that we're doing is more important than someone having a roof over their head. It's not. But it is important in growing our economy and keeping people employed and keeping our brand as the creative capital. So I'm hoping you'll consider our request, and I thank you for the time.
Thank you, Kristen. And you're right, we need to find the balance. Providence is really struggling, and we've been surely hardest hit through this pandemic. I was just wondering, the promotional activity that you proposed for Providence, how does that compare and translate? You know, other cities in Rhode Island are doing great, you know, and not so much us. So, you know, is this enough money, I guess, to turn on the engine to stimulate tourism and get things going and revive the down city in our hotels?
Well, you just said a mouthful, Councilwoman, when you said down city. No one has been, as much as I love all of the neighborhoods, no one's been more hard hit than downtown, and they're contending with a lot of issues. They don't, you know, they can't go, they don't have people that are coming into their local restaurant that are locals. I mean, you know, there's not a solid neighborhood base. So I, with more funding, would really look at how do we beef up downtown? How do we fill those gaps that are left because we don't have office workers? We don't have the levels of meeting and conventions. And going back to Stephanie's points, we don't have these large scale events, things like that. So that's one thing I would do. The other is one thing that we've been exploring is an e-commerce site and allowing people to buy souvenirs created by Rhode Islanders and local artists, and being able to order those online and take them home with them. So those are probably the two biggest things, because we're really focused on bringing back. I look at what I do right now, unfortunately, is triage. I look at who has the most need. I look at who has been hurt the most, and how do we help them? And that's what we've been doing really for the past 2 years.
Thank you. Can you send in your ideas on those topics, on those two topics?
I will. Thank you.
We really need to do more.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I just had to respond there. Council committee members, any questions for our two presenters on this really important topic?
Yes, may I speak?
Yes, Councilwoman Anthony, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Stephanie and Kristen very much for an excellent presentation tonight. This is the hardest hit, one of the hardest hit sectors from COVID. And I really, really appreciate all the data on this, on the, the impact to our economy. And I think that this is really a well thought out proposal. And I really, really appreciate all your efforts, both of you. Thank you. That's all I wanted to say. Yep.
Wonderful. Okay. Any other committee members have any questions, thoughts, concerns, comments? Okay, we have Councilwoman LaFortune, and I see Councilwoman Kerwin. So I saw Councilwoman LaFortune's hand up first. Please.
I also want to echo Councilwoman Anthony's sentiments. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Lizzie, who's also on this call, for all her hard work. And we are like part of Providence's DNA is the art, culture, and hospitality industry. Without it, I don't think our city can survive. So it's really important that we not only make the necessary investments in that particular area, but we continue to promote it. And also the work that they have been doing to elevate artists from diverse backgrounds that truly reflect the unique diversity of our city, for me, has been quite inspiring. So I just thank all of you for the amazing work that you have been doing and continue to do. And I also see some other folks who are participating on this call, like Kathleen Fletcher, all the work that everyone has done to provide more access to arts, culture, and then also making it part of the story of Providence, and particularly access to our kids, which I think has been quite critical, particularly during the pandemic. So thank you to all of you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Councilwoman LaFortune. Councilwoman Kerwin.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I just wanted, not to beat a dead horse, but I did want to just thank ACT for all of their work, especially over the last couple of years during COVID. I decided to run for office, and really I decided to move home after I had left and gone away to college, because I was an intern with art, culture, and tourism, and, seeing the work that Stephanie and Lizzie and Gina do is really inspiring. They have, the most brilliant people in their offices, and the people that I met in that office, I still, look to and am inspired by their work. And I think that really speaks to the impact that ACT has citywide. As the youngest member of the council, I can say, to a lot of people that grow up in Providence, it's not considered, the cool place to be. And ACT is changing that. And it's because, there aren't always jobs or opportunities for young people to stay here and live here and have a community here and have money here. And they've kind of changed the narrative. They've been working hard to make sure Providence is beautiful, not just in downtown, but in the neighborhoods. And what Councilwoman LaFortune said is absolutely right. They've done that by elevating Black and Brown artists. But then they've also created this really much larger impact in the city by bringing people to Providence and keeping people to Providence. And so I think they are one of the most influential groups working in the city. And I think we're so lucky to have them. And I just wanted to say thank you.
Well said, Councilwoman Kerwin. Thank you very much for your remarks. Any other comments, questions? Committee members, council members? I don't see anyone's hands up. I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you as well. It's remarkable work that you do with, quite honestly, a small budget. I think you've expressed the need very, very well. And my only concern is there's a lot of moving parts. So as we've expressed in the past, just managing all of this is going to be a big task. But Stephanie, I have every confidence in you. You really have done a wonderful job. And there is something special about the arts, culture, and tourism, the whole vibe in the city of Providence that makes us special and makes us unique. And we need to reinvigorate that. We got kicked in the teeth with COVID, particularly Providence. So I'm on board, and I can't say enough wonderful things about what you've done. And we need to do more of it quicker, faster. And the council surely wants to be a part of that. Our neighborhood, not only downtown has been impacted, but our neighborhoods as well. Our business corridors are struggling. I'm very excited with Kristen's presentation. First of all, she's just so dynamic. I just want to get out there and do whatever she wants us to do and get on board on that train. But I am intrigued by some of your comments of additional things that can be done, Kristen, and I think we need to hear that. So please send that in to me and copy the clerk. I'd like to get that out to the council so that we can look at it. And Stephanie, I'm not sure I asked you, but if there's additional funding sources or ideas that aren't in this budget that you'd like to contemplate and present to the council, don't be shy. Please raise them. If you have the thoughts you want to share tonight, I'm more than happy to listen as well. Please update the presentation that you made, because the presentation that I had, you were going off book a little bit. So I know that it's been updated. So make sure we get that information to the clerk's office and distribute it to the council. The presentation tonight was exceptional. I think that you really articulated the need and put forth some really solid ideas about what we can do moving forward, working together, and really kicking the engine and getting us back more vibrant, better, bigger and better than we've been in the past. So thank you for that. I would be remiss if I didn't ask our auditor, do you have any questions for any of the ladies that made presentations this evening?
No, I don't at this time. Thank you.
Okay. I wanted you to follow up with you too on just budget items. We talked about water fire is not being funded in this Arpa budget. It came out of the immediate need budget last time. It was a last minute ad, and I think it only drew down the check on February 1st. Is that correct?
That is correct.
We were told that was in the immediate need because they couldn't have any programming unless they had that funding. So that's why they were added to the immediate need bucket. So I was surprised when they didn't pull down the funds, which brings me to the whole topic again of accounting and managing these funds and making sure we're getting them out, that they're measurable, that, I loved when Kristen said that she wanted to report to the council on her metrics of success. So how do we measure? These are great once in a generation dollars. We've got to make sure that we are measuring success. We have achievable goals. They're well defined in the it gives us the opportunity to say, hey, this is what we did with all these funds. So I don't have any more questions. I think we're going to continue this discussion. We're going to digest what you've provided to us on, and if we need to call you back, we will. If you have any thoughts and you want to make any changes to your presentations, by all means, please reach out to me. With that, I think we're done. I'd like to ask for a motion to continue item 1. May I have that motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Councilwoman Anthony, seconded by anybody on there? Anybody out there? Second. All in favor, aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. No, item 1 is continued. Thank you all. Keep up the good work. Very, very impressive. I need now a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion made. Motion. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilwoman Ryan. All in favor, aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you.